artillery piece and getting ready to fire it again. We're going to fire it about once every 5 minutes for the interest of safety. You can listen carefully to the commanders. Our troops who are now in open order are going to close up. Our sergeant has asked for them to close to the center, so the right side of the line moves into the center and the left side moves in the center. We're essentially going to create a very concentrated wall of lead to throw at the enemy. Today they're in 2 ranks, standing. There are drills to allow them to fire in 3 ranks, and that includes the front rank kneeling as well. And that was a terrific volley. As you can see, the idea is everybody pulls the trigger at the same time. One can only imagine the sort of noise and smoke produced on a battlefield with literally thousands of people. I would like to point out that the ladies and gentlemen that you see in uniform today are all university and college students working at Fort George, Fort Niagara, and Fort Erie. This is their summer job. And yes, it is hot in uniforms. There's a volley from the Fort York Guard, or the Canadian Regiment of Defensible Infantry on the right-hand side. The Fort George Guard of the 41st. Left-hand side of the line. Our artillery piece will be firing again. As I mentioned earlier, the 3-pounders sort of fell into disuse by the War of 1812. They were issued to battalions, usually 2 to a battalion, infantry battalion, for support. Normally you would see 1 on either side of the line, but I think putting 1 here close to you guys might be a bad idea. Technically, the artillery crew should be able to load and fire that cannon as fast as a musketman. We don't do that, of course, in the interest of safety. But good trained artillerists could load and discharge an artillery piece 3 times a minute. I was mentioning the black powder that they're firing. Nice crisp volley from the Fort York Guard. I feel the Americans are getting nervous now. And another nice one from Fort George. You notice that these are all smooth-bore muskets, as I said, and they are all muzzle loaders, so nothing gets loaded from the bottom end. They all get loaded from the top. What they're putting back inside the firearm, of course, is the rammer, which seats home the cartridge and the ball. Artillerists are just going through a slow, dry run procedure here between. Again, you'll notice the sergeants at the back with the pike. The pike has 2 purposes, 1 to protect you and 1 to keep your troops from running.
course, tactics changed later on in the 19th century with the advent of smokeless powder. And uniforms, of course, became far more earthy, greens and browns and the like. Bright colors, as I mentioned before, were very important for tactics in this period. Our artillerists today are just wearing their undress uniforms, short-sleeved waistcoats, which would be typical of what we'd see here in a garrison in 1813. One mass volley here.
Bright colors, as I mentioned before, were very important for tactics in this period. Our artillerists today are just wearing their undress uniforms, short-sleeved waistcoats, which would be typical of what we'd see here in a garrison in 1813. One mass volley here. That doesn't make you run, nothing will. You notice how the smoke sort of hangs a bit. Of course, when the air is damp, it does tend to sort of hang around the ground. It makes it very difficult to spot your enemy. Now our troops are fixing bayonets. A large spike-like knife on the end of the musket, which is used to repel cavalry and also to force the enemy off the field, or at least cause them to disperse. They're porting arms, putting alongside, and they're being prepared to receive cavalry. And a beautiful event there. We have both the artillery and the muskets go off at once. Of course, enemy on horseback are the enemy to be most concerned about, and that's why we have those bayonets mounted on the end. They're called socket bayonets. They don't actually plug into the barrel. You can fire with them on, clearly. They're triangular in shape, and they inflict a particularly horrible wound. Well, someone's just asking what all that smoking is under the grass. The cartridges, the ammunition that they fire is essentially a paper tube. And so remnants of that paper tube are coming firing out and burning in the grass.